Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Arlington Board of Selectmen for April 9th, 2018, 7:15. We're meeting in the Selectmen's Chambers, second floor of Town Hall, 830 Massachusetts Avenue, Arlington. Our first order of business is an organizational meeting for the purpose of electing a chairman and a vice chairman. And for that purpose, our Board Administrator, Marie Kropelka, will preside.
I'm going to first ask the board to come for a nomination for chairman. Mr. Greeley?
Yes, I would like to nominate Dan Dunn as chairman.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to move to close nominations for chair.
All
Second.
in favor? Okay. Now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Curo?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Greeley?
Undecided, no, yes.
Okay,
Did you
now
get
do I
Mr.
ask Joe?
Did you get Mr.
Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to 5-0.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we're going to close nominations, and you are going to be nominated.
Well, now we have to vote on the motion
Oh,
to make Jan the chair.
Right, okay, so now we're going to nominate, we're going to vote to make you the chair. All right, so could I have Mr. Duns,
Aye.
Mr. Hurd,
Aye.
Mr. Curo,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mr. Greeley?
Yes, is this your first time at an organizational meeting?
It is. All right, the second part, business for tonight, is now to nominate for a vice chair. And I'd like to hear nominations from the
I
board.
nominate Diane Mahan for vice chairman.
I'd second that nomination.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I'll do a
No,
roll.
no, you can't do that
Someone
yet.
has to move to
Yeah,
close.
I move to close nominations.
All right, and now I'm going to have a roll call vote. Is seconded for the closing? Okay, now I'm going to have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mr. Curo,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Mr. Greeley. Now, all in favor, so hearing no one opposition, we
Well,
can
now we
go
have to
on
vote
I have
the
to
vice
still
Vice
do
chair.
the roll call.
Sorry.
Really, is
Yes.
this your first?
Yes, it is. Mr. Hurd,
Yes.
Mr. Curo,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, I want to congratulate Mr. Dunn and also Mrs. Mahan. And now I will turn it over to you again.
Thank you.
Is this like that, what was that game show, everybody stands up and then you sit down and the real person? Oh, if you want to trade seats again.
Well, I'm keeping this desk,
I'm
that's
here.
all I know.
I always get as close to the exit sign.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mrs. Vaughan. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Curo was, as chairman last year, I had an excellent tradition of introducing everybody, and I think that that is an excellent way for us to welcome our newest member, Mr. John Hurd.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your win.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
To thank everyone that supported me, and I'm now excited to be done with the campaign and ready to get in here and work with you guys.
Welcome.
Welcome.
And of course, congratulations as well to Mr. Curo on being returned by the voters and with us for another 3 years.
Thank you very much. I really look forward to serving with all of you for the next time. It's been a fun run so far, and let's keep it going.
My name is Dan Dunn. This is Selectman Diane Mahan, Selectman Kevin Greeley, and with us also we have Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine, Douglas Heim, our Town Council, and Board Administrator Marie Kropelka. Welcome everybody to our first meeting of what you'd call the new term. Mr. Greeley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dunn, and congratulations to you and Mrs. Mahan on your chairmanship and vice chairmanship. And thank Mr. Curo for a great year as chairman and for your reelection. And I'm excited to continue working with you, and I'm very excited to welcome John Hurd to the board. Had the pleasure and honor of serving with his father for 14 years. I will not be serving with you for 14 years. It might be 14 days if I sell my house tonight. We'll see.
Escrow.
But he's the fourth member of the Hurd family, and throughout the history of Arlington, no one family has had 4 members of the family, all, different relations from the same family. Welcome and thank you very much. And I would also congratulate Mr. Ruderman on his campaign, running for selectman. He ran a very strong campaign. But congratulations, Joe and John.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so I think that closes, unless there are any further comments, our organizational meeting. Next up on our agenda is the Patriots' Day weekend events. Mr. Peluso from the Arlington Tourism and Economic Development. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Ted Peluso. I'm a volunteer for the Arlington Tourism and Economic Development Committee. And I got a list here of what's going to happen on Patriots Weekend. I want you to know, first of all, that the biggest effort on that day is made by Angela Ozuski, who is the chair of the committee. On Monday particularly, she does everything almost single-handed. So we do have some volunteers, but we sure could use some more. And she does a fantastic job, okay? Now, as far as what's happening on Sunday, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., the Jason Russell House is open for tours. It only stops for an hour or so when they have the reenactment. And it's free, but they do appreciate donations. Around noon, they reenact the battle. Regrettably, there is no live deaths. They're almost all make-believe. In terms, I'm sorry.
Regrettably.
Almost all.
Regrettably, that would make it really interesting, wouldn't it? But the Minutemen do it. It's fascinating, and they're really good at that. And of course, the Jason Russell House itself puts a lot of effort into that. Now, the parade begins at 2 p.m., and that starts at Brattle Square and goes along Mass Avenue down to Walgreens, pretty much. And in the parade, as far as ATED is concerned, and there's a lot of people on that parade, as far as ATED is concerned, they do have the replica of the visitor center. Now, that was built by Bob Radosha. It is absolutely a gorgeous piece of work. They bring it along, and of course, it's dedicated to Rolly Chaput, and that's a great thing. On Monday, April 16th, the activities start about 11 o'clock. This is when, at the Town Hall, representatives of the Arlington Tourism and Economic Development Committee, primarily Angela doing a bang-up job there, comes along and sets up refreshments and craft tables, and we get a lot of kids, and hopefully this will be a good weather Monday, and we'll have a lot of kids again. They have a lot of fun, and we stand around and wait for Paul Revere and William Dawes to show up. Usually Paul shows up first, and then William Dawes shows up second. We always have somebody to greet them. I would like to very much invite at least one of our selectmen to be there. Oh, I was thinking
Mr.
of
Kuro
you,
will be
fellow.
joining you.
Why not?
I can
Two
be
of
there
them
as
then.
well, sure.
That's great.
Excellent.
You got to wear a hat, though. So they show up around noon, and between 1 and 4 p.m., the Jason Russell House is again open for tours, and again it's free, and donations are gratefully accepted. About 5 o'clock in the evening, I go home, and I got to do my tax extension, which is due the next day for federal income taxes. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Come and
Mr.
enjoy
Peluso.
yourself.
All right. Next up, we have a hearing for a removal of 2 ash trees on Foster Street for the Gibbs School reconstruction. And I understand there's been an update in the actual request. Mr. Chapdelaine, is it appropriate for you, or?
Yeah, so I don't know if Tim or Bill Copperthorne, were you planning on speaking to it, or if you'd like me to? I'm happy to do it if it suits the chair. So there was 2 requests before the board tonight for tree removals in conjunction with the Gibbs School reconstruction. or renovation. However, there's only one removal that we'll be asking for and approval for tonight, given some changes to the plan. So I'll give a brief description and then happy to answer any questions. And the tree warden and Bill Copperthorne from engineering are here as well. So there are there's two distinct issues. One is identified on the within the packet for the selectmen, tree number 1. That is an ash tree, and it is adjacent to where an ADA accessible curb cut ramp is being installed as part of the project. What is being requested is permission to remove the tree if necessary. The project team is trying to create the ramp and the transitions that are necessary to create ADA accessibility without impacting the tree, but based on where the ramp needs to be positioned, there will be some impact to the roots, and it's the extent of that impact that is yet to be determined. I know the tree warden, myself, and a member of the engineering team were out there today, and they definitely have the intention of trying to save the tree, but cannot promise it. So rather than accidentally killing the tree and having to come back to say sorry, we're preemptively asking for permission should the tree have to be removed for the installation of that ramp. So that we are asking for the board's approval tonight. The other tree that had been requested to be removed was an ash tree a little bit down the street from the ash tree, or tree number 1. That tree no longer needs to be removed because the recessed curb line for safe drop-off of students at the Gibbs has been pushed further down towards Broadway. So that particular tree will no longer need to be removed. However, there is an additional tree, a Norway maple, that is now where the recessed curb line is proposed to go. However, that tree has not had a tree hearing, so we cannot request approval of that to be removed tonight. So the tree warden will start the process of posting a tree hearing, and then, if necessary, we'll be back before the board if there's an objector at that tree hearing at a future meeting date.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. And just for people who aren't as familiar with the process, the way this works is when there's a tree, a public shade tree that needs to be removed, there's a posting made on the tree about an upcoming hearing, and then that hearing is held, and people can either attend, and there can be objections filed in writing, or they can be objections filed at that hearing. And if there, and then if there is an objection, the tree warden must deny the removal of the tree. And if there is no objection, then it's in the tree warden's discretion. But in this case, there was a letter, and so, Mr. LaCleve, could you talk to us about the tree, the hearing, anything else you think we should know?
Absolutely. I'm Tim LaCleve. I'm the Arlington Town Tree Warden. And again, the engineering group did reach out to me to take a look at these ash trees for potential removal. They're healthy. They're native trees. It would be great if the contractors could work around the trees. If they can't, just due to student safety, that's why we had the tree removal request. So as far as the ash trees, they're healthy. They're 13-inch DBH, which is diameter at breast height. So therefore, for every 1 inch of DBH, you need 10 inches of root. So in order to stay away from the buttress of the tree with the root flare, they would have to stay about 5.5 feet away from the tree. So it looks like it's going to be borderline with the number 1 tree that Mr. Chapelain had described. I'll be on site to work with the contractors, and we'll do our best to try to save that tree. Tree number 2, that ash tree, looks like that will not be impact for the construction, but that whole drop-off area had been moved a bit because there is a side street, so there's some there's just a little safety concern. So that drop-off area had been moved down the street, and then that's why there's another tree, a Norway maple, that will have to have another tree hearing. I did reach out to Wicked Locals, who places our legal ads for the Arlington Advocate, and it's a 1-week process to get the ad in, and then a 2-week consecutive week that the ad has to be run. So that ad should be run in the Arlington Advocate next Thursday, and it has to run for 2 consecutive weeks. Also in our town website will be posted, and the tree itself will be posted for 2 consecutive weeks. After that, that'll give anybody an opportunity to reach out to me, to object, whether they want to write a letter. We prefer that those letters, when they're submitted, to have your name and your address, so we know who you are, and also they could show up to the hearing itself. And I encourage anybody that does object, please come to the hearing and we can have a discussion. It's difficult to have a discussion with these matters if no one comes to the hearing itself. So that's as far as kind of the protocol with the trees as we stand.
Thank you. So I'm going to open up to the public in a minute, but first, are there any questions from members of the board? Seeing none. So this is, Mr. Copperthorne, do you have anything you needed to add, or are you good? Sure, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, I guess. My name is Bill Copperthorne. I'm the Assistant Town Engineer. And thank you both to Tim and Adam for presenting the issue at hand. First off, I just wanted to apologize for the confusion that occurred in the tree hearing process. The design was evolving as we were trying to plan out this road work in collaboration with the school. So when we transferred the knowledge, I think there was a little loss on which tree we were working with at that stage. So again, apologize for that confusion, and as we go through the process, if there's any more questions that come up that I can help answer, I'm more than happy to. Basically, it's been pretty much explained what the issue is, but for clarity, the biggest problem we foresee is as you are doing a roadway reconstruction or a sidewalk reconstruction, you can't really tell the grade line in the middle of the road until you get that far down. And we've already done the preliminary work of removing the sidewalk, and that has given us an idea of where the tree roots are, as was explained. Early indication is that we may be able to work around it, and we're very hopeful that that is what we can do. And if we cannot, obviously, that was the reason for the request. And that's basically it. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody here to talk about this one tree? Seeing none. Mrs. Mahan.
I'd like to make a motion to move approval of the tree number 1 removal process as outlined by our town manager, Adam Chapdelaine.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from any members of the board? Really?
I don't know, does it need to be entered into the record that Mr. Loretti wrote a letter objecting?
It's definitely a part of our packet, and we can definitely include that as the.
Okay.
Any further comments or discussion?
I disagree with them, but, you know.
Yeah, I think that one of the points that that I read in that memo was that he compared the tree to the hearing that we had on Webb Cowett, and I would say that one of the big differences with Webb Cowett is what the opinion of the neighborhood is, whereas in this case, we didn't have any neighbors who appeared either at the tree hearing or here, whereas in the Webb Cowett case, the neighbors were very involved, and I think that that's one of those things that I really consider when I look at these tree hearings. Any further discussion? Seeing none, a motion from Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Curo. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That is a 5-0 vote. Thank you for coming in. All right, next up on our list is the consent agenda. Consent agenda is a whole bunch of things that we think are non-controversial, but they do need our approval, and so I'm going to go through all of them, and if anyone is on this one of these items who wishes to speak, you're absolutely most welcome to once I finish reading the list. So in tonight's consent agenda, for approval, a water bill insert for a Town of Arlington textile donation, which is requested by Dean Carmen, our treasurer. A request for the annual Hardy School PTO Walkathon on Friday, April 27th, 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. from Patsy O'Brien. We have approval for the date change for the Arlington High School All Sports Boosters Club 5K Trick or Trot. It was originally going to be May 12th of this year, and now it's going to be October 27th from Kirsten Merlino. We have a request for the change of hours for an all-alcohol restaurant, Skutra, on Summer Street. We have a request for a one-day all-alcohol license on April 21st here at the Whittemore Robbins House for a private event. We've got another one-day all-alcohol license for 2818 at the Robbins Town Hall for the Waldorf School Gala fundraiser. We have another one-day alcohol license for the Robbins Library Reading Room for a private event. And we have another one-day all-alcohol license for the Whittemore Robbins House for a private event. We have a contractor drain layer license from Stoneworks of Arlington. And we have appointment of many new election workers. Donna Hessel, William Larson, Francis Marshall, Julie Regazio, Marlene Rockmore, Margaret Stanley, Jacqueline Starr, Lauren Sweetser, and Marcy Terrio. Is there anyone here, is there a motion?
Move approval.
A second.
Second.
Is there anyone here who wants to talk about any of these things? If you're doing one of these events, this is a great time to do your advertising. And I'm seeing none. All right, we have a... please, come on up. Thank you, Mr. Kira. You absolutely don't have to, but you're most welcome to.
So I'm just here for
Could you pull your mic down, and that way people will actually hear you.
City of Bonnier from Scooter Restaurant. I'm just here to extend our hours from noon to 11,
Cool.
Monday through Sunday.
I love the bike decorations you put up on your back porch.
Thank you. Hence the hours.
If you go down the bike path and you look at the back of Scooter where they've got like that seating up there, they've got like these beautiful bike rim art pieces set into the wall that are really quite nice.
We tried to bring the bike trail to the restaurant.
You got it.
The whole thing looks very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Mrs. Mahan, did you?
I just want to say, I really appreciate what you presented to us. You were going to do out in that particular area and create the venue you did. You really went above and beyond, and really compliments. Sometimes you think of back of a store, back of a restaurant, it's really not aesthetically pleasing, but you definitely can sit there on a nice, warm, sunny day, whether you bike in or not, and kind of, I think the ambiance and all the efforts that you put into that are definitely a treasure. So I hope I can make it there.
We hope you can.
Thank you.
I have to say that anyone who travels from Lexington that's never been to this part has definitely commented on the whole area, that corner there. So it's a positive thing for the town.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion by Diane and a second, I think it was Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, 5-0, consent
And
agenda.
then the second one is just the all-day license.
You got them all, you got it all in one
Okay,
vote.
perfect.
The consent agenda does everything. It's magical. All right, next up, we have our appointment to Parks and Recreation of Christine Tarantino. Come on up. Welcome. Thank you for volunteering. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and why you're volunteering and what you hope to accomplish?
Well, currently I've been on the Parks Commission for 2.5 years as a non-voting member, so a seat opened up, so just trying to glide into that. So, and I've been a lifelong resident of Arlington and just have grew up by Robbins Farm and currently lived there for 20 years with my family, so my children have loved Robbins Farm as well. So, and I'm an elementary school teacher of 31 years, so I have, I think, a love of the whole town for that. And it's just, I love to give back. I volunteer coach at the high school too, so I like to be involved. So I think this is a good opportunity for me.
Great, thank you.
Move approval. Thank you very much, Christine.
Second, and I have to disclose that I know this person for many, many years, and I remember, dealings up at Brackett and the various issues that we faced, including keeping it open. And Mrs. Tarantino is sort of like a hurricane, tornado, cyclone of energy, but she does it so quietly. She just keeps her head below, and I really appreciated all those years up at Brackett and everything you did to support the school and the staff, and I know you're going to make a most excellent member on the Park and Rec Commission.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Kira.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for the work that you've apparently already done as a non-voting member of the commission. I had the opportunity to go up last week to the presentation of the reservoir master plan. You've really done great work on that, and I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition.
It's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-0, thank you very much. Thank you for volunteering. Okay, item 15, for approval, Sidewalk Cafe license renewals in Broadway Plaza, Common Ground, Cafe Nero, and Twirl. I don't know if we want to take these one by one, or if people are comfortable with them, we should do them as a group. Are any of those restaurants here who want to talk about the changes that we're doing and the setups that we're doing? I'm not seeing any.
I'm here.
Come on up, just introduce yourself, please, and just say which restaurant you're at and just a little bit about what you're trying to do.
Hello, my name's Chris Furlong. I'm with Twirl. We've been in business about 9 months, and we are, along with Nero and Common Ground, are just applying for the renewal of our outdoor cafe licenses which is a big part of our business, so,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
thank you.
Mr. Chapdelaine?
If the chair allows me, I just want to mention that Mr. Furlong, out of his own expense, paid for the removal of a planter that was in front of his storefront to be able to more comfortably allow for this outdoor seating. So we're very thankful that he made that investment, and with the board's approval tonight, I think it'll be a nice addition to Broadway Plaza to have that extra space.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to move approval of all three.
Approve. Thank you. We have a
Second.
motion. You got to move quicker, Mr. Hurd.
All right.
He told me he's going to sit back and observe.
All I was just gonna say is,
Then he's gonna get it.
Wait, it's Mr. Hurd's
Wait,
maiden speech.
Wait, I withdraw my second.
I withdraw my motion. You want to make the motion?
no, I was just gonna say, as a fellow business owner in the center, these sidewalk cafes have really brought a lot of life to that area. I'm in there all day, so, I appreciate that the businesses go through the expense of putting them in there, and I think they're doing very well.
We need a
Go ahead.
motion, John.
Motion for approval.
All right.
Go ahead, Jim.
I'll second that
All
motion.
right. I had already written down that he made the motion, whether he did it or not. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, 5-0 vote. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, request sidewalk cafe and alteration of premise for Alcitron. Is Prakash Hool here? Hoole? Welcome. How do I say your last name?
You can call me Go-To. The town knows me as Go-To.
Go-To.
Yeah.
All right.
But good evening.
Please, how do I say your last name?
Hule.
Go. Thank you.
Go-To Hule, yeah.
Welcome. Could you please tell us about your
Yeah,
proposal?
good evening. Congratulations to
Thank
John.
you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And so I'm from Alcitron. I run the place with Irais over here. And keeping in theme with all the patios and Scooter and common ground in the plaza, we want our own patio too. So what's happening? So it's not a sidewalk where we could have put anything on the the sidewalk. The application says that, but there's actually land between us and the building next door, which was, it's just, there's nothing there. And, and I've been asking the landlord for years, hey, why don't you just give it to me, And finally he's like, okay, take it, just like that. So, and plus, I wanted to be excited about it, and then we kind of put the word out there with all the customers and, with the building department, with Christine at the Board of Health to see if this would work. And they were like, yeah, just do it, So we got that out there. And then, of course, Marie here, she was excited about it, And then once Marie approves everything,
That's it.
that's it, So here I am, So it's a little more private, It's you can't see it from the street, You'll have to get into the restaurant, and then from the restaurant you go to this little space. But we'll make it cute. We have to make it cute. In the restaurant business, you got to make it nice. It's all about the ambience and everything, So yeah, I'm here. Arlington has always been very, very supportive to me, right from my tango days to now Alcitron, and we just love being in this town. It's super supportive. I like to keep everything here. I don't want people to run to Davis and Belmont and Harvard, and I think this whole patio thing in the summertime is a fantastic idea for Arlington.
Thank you.
The whole thing that's happened at the plaza, it just brings so much life and energy, and people going up and down. Hey, what's going on here? Let's stop by.
Cool.
So I'm excited about it.
All right. Thank you.
And it's up to you guys now.
I have questions, comments, motion?
Well, I'll make a motion
Carroll.
to approve, subject to all conditions as set forth. And I don't know if there's a second on.
Second.
Second for Mr. Greeley.
And just note, that I'm sure you've seen the material, that there are a few issues that the
Right.
Health Department raised that they would like to have addressed, some of those vents.
Yeah, I'm gonna take care of that.
Closed,
Yes.
and they had a couple of other questions that they raised here, but
Yeah, I'm aware of
it was
that.
in their memo. You've seen the memo?
Yeah, I have.
From the Health Department, so our approval is contingent upon those-
Sure.
taking care of all of those
Right,
conditions.
right, right.
Thank you, Mr. Curo. Any other?
Thank you. Thank you, because
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. So, no, excuse me, none. So 5-0. I apologize.
Threw me for a second.
So that's Mr. Curo, motion and second by Mr. Greeley. You're good, subject to all conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Citizens Open Forum, and Citizens Open Forum is the opportunity for anyone in the public to address the board on any issue that they feel the need. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall be neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance to this policy. It should be noted that there's a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. And so the intent here is people want to raise things, we want to hear about them, but we want to do some preparation before we act on them.
There's no one signed.
No one signed up. Is there anyone here who's here for Citizens Open Forum? Mr. Hurd, I'm looking at you. All right. Next up, discussion, bike share regulations. Mr. Heim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have in front of you are a set of draft bike share regulations for the licensing of bike share operations in Arlington. The board may recall that a similar set of draft regulations were before you in September of 2017. I'm not asking for your approval tonight because, for one, I wanted to make sure the board had time to look at these, get any sort of feedback that they might receive from other folks, develop questions over time. Also because there's some other folks from the bike share working group that are still looking at them, as well as we may want some comments from our partners in the MAPC. I just want to note a few quick things. One is that this is not the only document that would govern the bike share vendors that have been selected to come to Arlington. We also have what's being called a statement of work, essentially our individualized contract with them. There's the RFP that we joined for a regional bike share program that the MAPC issued, which would also govern the bike share in Arlington as long as we're using these two vendors. And then finally, there's the state laws with respect to the operation of bicycles that informs and are referenced in these regulations for the licenses. I just want to note that there have been some changes made from the first time this was in front of you. For a sort of really quick summary, we were getting ready to move forward with bike share regulations when we essentially found out the MAPC was going to do a regional bike share RFP. That's advantageous for us because a lot of our neighboring communities like Medford and Lexington have joined, and it's getting us more competitive bids because it's a bigger market. So you will so some of the things remain the same that I thought were important. In other words, we've chosen dockless bike share, but I think it's important to have regulations for dock-based systems if in the future, after the year that we're obligated to go with the vendors that we've selected, we decide to change course, we'll have a set of regulations in place. Most of the things that have changed are that our agreements basically cover things like indemnification a little bit more than the regulations do. We had originally had some language in here about having a bond, but the insurance that's required under the RFP and the statement of work is such that the bond shouldn't really be necessary anymore. And you'll actually see that. I did take that and put that into our regulations, just so it was clear that there's property insurance, commercial liability for personal injury, as well as property damage and damage to vehicles, as well as workers' compensation. A few other things were pared back. The only things that really are that are not filled in here are how many bikes. We're still waiting to hear from our folks about what are the minimum number of bikes we want in Arlington, what are the maximum number of bikes. And the other piece is we haven't set a fee for this license. The MAPC, to be totally transparent with everybody, has noted that the bike share vendors that we've selected are putting a lot of money in up front. And so they're respectfully requesting that we keep the fee low for the first, sort of pilot program period, because they're absorbing a lot of risk. Just so everybody knows, Arlington's not paying anything for these bikes. It doesn't work the same way that Hubway does, where there's a large upfront sort of capital investment by the community. The bikes are free to Arlington, but we would have to subsequently do a few other steps, the first of which would be approving these regulations so they can actually get a license to operate here, with the theory being that you control the public and private ways. The second being that we would sign the scope of work, which would have some details about how they're operationally going to interact with Arlington's government and its residents. And the final piece would be granting locations where we're going to allow them on town property to have dockless bikes essentially parked. We can't allow that for school department. The school department would have to approve those locations, or at least, be involved in that process, and we may have to get some permissions from the MBTA as well, but those pieces are still being worked out. So if you have any questions at this stage, I'm happy to answer them. If you have any feedback of things that you'd like me to consider in terms of before you vote on these regulations at your next meeting, I'd be happy to hear any comments or concerns that the board has.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you for your work on this. I think the only thing that comes to mind for me is that last point that you made about locations and grants of location on town property. Our last discussion about this, for example, we talked about the fact that we could probably reasonably predict that a lot of people are going to want to utilize this to go to Alewife, and one potential approach to that was to create a pen or an area where we could place the bicycles possibly down just before the underpass on by the dog park. But if there's any type of improvement, I don't know what level of improvement we would potentially have to do to that area, if we'd have to do some paving or what was anticipated for that area. I would just want to ensure that if there are improvements of that sort, that whatever fee we ultimately set or other mechanism for compensation from the vendors, that we can cover a substantial or all of that cost, because that's one of the attractions for us, is that we're not making this big capital investment up front that you would with a docked system. And if we have to lay out significant money for dedicated locations, I think we'd want to have some way to recoup some of that. I don't know if the...
Understood.
Yeah.
Mr. Greeley?
Thank you for your excellent work, as always. In terms of, have other communities set their fee for this yet?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. I spoke with Margie, who came before you, was it 2 weeks ago, to you on behalf of the MAPC. I believe that Arlington is the first. I know that Newton is probably the furthest along in the process, but not all of these regulations are really speaking to the same issues. In terms of fees, they're supposed to be related to the actual costs.
Of administration, right?
Yeah, for the administration. To be candid, I do think that over time, and I've put a sort of footnote in, that one should expect those fees to increase. I think under the RFP, they've said that nominal fees may be set by local communities. Again, to try to reflect that if we want this to succeed, and I know that we all do, that it may be something that we have to sort of ease into in terms of the cost. But I think it's a fair point that if there's any infrastructure improvements that are required, I think we can certainly discuss that, not only within in the context of regulations, but within the scope of work specifically with each vendor.
Go ahead. I agree. Kevin?
Did you want to talk, Adam? And we're licensing the company, not each individual bike, correct? Or does the number of bikes matter for the license?
No, that's correct.
I know you said we haven't set that number yet, but...
That's correct, Mr. Greeley. So one of the things that you'll see in these draft regulations is our commitment to a competitive procurement process as a prerequisite for a license. So what's nice about that is we should know generally a lot about the folks who are going to come in front of us for a license. It's not a perfect example. It's not exactly like a taxi or Hackney license, nor is it exactly like any of the other licenses that the board grants. But we'll have a pretty good idea, and we'll be licensing the operator, not the individual bikes. But they'll be communicating with us, and our planning folks will be able to say, look, this is the maximum amount of bikes that we think Arlington can start with. And it's also okay for us to revise these regulations. That's one of the other important things about having regulations versus just a contract document, is that as our experience with it teaches us a little bit about bike share, we may, by next year, decide we could use 150 more bikes from each company, or we could turn around and say, this is not working for us, we need 50 fewer. So we'll have some flexibility within the terms of the license.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Diane?
I know at the last meeting, this sort of was touched upon, and I can't remember exactly what appeared on the bicycle, so just for feedback, and this may already be done. I know the gentleman that presented to us said that there's GPS on all of these bikes, so they know where they are at all times. Two business owners and one person said to me, what happens if these bikes all of a sudden end up in front of my house or not approved location? Am I assuming that somewhere on that bike that there'll be easy, accessible contact information, phone number, not just the what, or some, that's the only thing I heard, and I couldn't remember from the presentation if that was outlined.
That's a good question, Vice Chair Mahan. There's kind of a triple layer of redundancy on that specific issue, because that's one of people's chief concerns. So each bike is going to be equipped with GPS and information that will allow someone both to contact the vendor directly and to contact the town. The vendors are obligated under the contract, basically documents, to essentially recalibrate their bikes. So they're going to be going out and getting them. They shouldn't be collecting in any place for an unreasonable period of time. I can't remember, to be frank with you, off the top of my head, if it's as short as like 24 hours, but it's a short period of time that they basically have to basically go around the community and pick up bikes that are basically in a location that they're not supposed to be. Under your regulations, you also have another requirement that says you have to have on your app information about how people can get in touch with the folks that they need to relocate these bikes if they're in an improper location. And then we also have a provision in the regulations themselves that as a condition of the license, the vendor will make sure that these bikes aren't left in inappropriate places for an unreasonable amount of time. There may be nothing we can do to make sure that somebody, the response time may vary a little bit. If somebody parks in front of, a restaurant and they shouldn't leave it there, half an hour, might go by or something like that. But the overall goal of the contract documents and the regulations is to make sure, A, that there's all the information that you're asking for in terms of how to contact folks, and B, even without someone affirmatively reaching out to them, they're going to go out and find these bikes and make sure they get to the locations that they're supposed to be. And just one other quick note on that. So you're approving, if the way these regulations are drafted, you'd basically have a series of public locations, MBTA property, town property, school property, if they're okay with that, where these bikes would essentially be parked. It's also proposed that the vendor be allowed to contract with private property owners to store bikes on private property at approved locations as well. So there should be a number of places in Arlington where they'll be able to relocate any bikes that are essentially, have been abandoned in a place that they're not supposed to, and users should be advised upon basically taking the bike that you have to drop this off in an approved location.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing, the concern from people, if I may, Mr. Chair, is that we're just starting out on this and we're kind of close to, if not first out of the gate. And listening to the gentleman last week, he said, based out of Malden, GPS, 24, 36 hours. That's with what he currently has. I anticipate as this program picks up, that there could be a possibility that people are thinking, especially businesses, that, we say you got to go to this public place, but I can see a few people perhaps just going straight to the business and leaving it there. And what they were saying is, what if this bike is here 1, 2, 3 days and they don't pick it up? Which, as the program catches on, you're going to get those little glitches, and I know that the bike share company will, recalibrate on how they do that. But what they were saying to me, it would be great if for some reason we see a bike or, some person takes it and decides to ride it and leaves it in the middle of a field that no one would know, they were saying, is there gonna be something on there that I can call it in, you know, hey, the bike's been in front of my business for 2-3 days, or, because I understand the app feature, but that means you have to be on this bike share app. I'm just talking about, that was the only thing that I heard a lot of out there. So you don't necessarily, because you said just give feedback. I'm not trying to, you know, make it that you should have the answer right now. So I'm just leaving it, you know where I'm going, Mr. Chapdelaine?
Yeah, I think we'll go back to the vendor and see if they can put a decal on every bike that just says call here if there's an issue or whatever the right
A log on
terminology
here or
is. Yeah.
something. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, sorry.
You had, I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to share, it's not directly related, but related. I am going into a meeting at the MAPC on Wednesday with representatives from Cambridge, Boston, Somerville, and Brookline, who are the Hubway or Blue Bike communities, to have a discussion about what they are planning to do about dockless bikes to come into their community. And my initial understanding going into the meeting is there's already becoming a softening of their hardline positions, so I can't promise anything, but those discussions are underway. So before we come back before the board asking to approve these, we should hopefully have a clearer picture of what the actual border crossing allowances may or may not be via this program.
Thank you. So I had a couple thoughts. One was in terms of I think, so it's C2, we're talking about freestanding bikes where bikes can be placed. I think this language I think you got it right, but what I was stretching for is, are we leaving enough room for creativity if they find something else? And I think this language does, but if you ever came across, but I guess one of the things that I would just say as feedback, if you come across something, you read another town or something like that, I'd very much like to look for a way, let's try things and make sure, but I think we've got, it's there already. The second thing on the fees is, I think with this data we're going to get, we're also going to have a decent idea about what their revenue is from us, and that will help us inform future fee or licensing thoughts. And I'm definitely comfortable with a low fee in the short term and communicating that to them and saying, this is one of those things, we're doing it as, we recognize what's going on, we're doing it as a short term, we're going to evaluate this fee again, we make no promises about futures. And I'm good with that. Is there any further discussion? Can I have a motion for receipt?
Move receipt.
Second.
Diane and Joe. Any further conversation? All those in favor of moving receipt, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay. I think I'm going to push future Board of Selectmen meeting off till to the end, and I'm going to do that before the executive session. But let's do our final votes and comments. Mr. Heim.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may, I just want to note two quick things. One is that Article 24, revolving funds, vote and comment, it wasn't included in your electronic packet. I was trying to get a version that I could get into the Word document. The acting treasurer, acting comptroller did try to send me something, but it didn't work. They've got it in an Excel spreadsheet. I'll make sure it gets in the Board of Selectmen report as not just a printout of a PDF document, but it's your most standard vote and comment. Just says it represents the usual vote to receive reports on expenditures and receipts of the various town revolving funds, and to authorize and reauthorize such funds in accordance with state law. And then there'll be the appendix that actually attaches the additional material that the board's asked for over the last couple of years. And as Mr. Chapdelaine noted, there is one correction. Which one is that? Which account is that to? There's a correction that will be made in the comptrollers. There's a typo in here. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it from the last meeting, but so that was not in your electronic packet in terms of the final votes and comments, but it's on your desk.
Mr. Chapdelaine, you had one that you needed to increase the maximum.
Yeah, that was the, I believe it was the town hall rentals.
It was,
Yes,
it was
yeah.
something from 100 to 125.
Yeah,
if I
town hall
remember.
rentals, 4150, it's on the second page of financial figures.
And so expenditures not to exceed 125. Where you got that? And that's under town hall rentals, 4150?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same, one and the same as what Doug mentioned.
Okay. So, And also,
So,
I'll just,
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
yep.
So
So
it says not to exceed 100, but it exceeded by 109, by 9.
that's why we're
So
moving.
he's moving it to 125.
Okay, sorry, I didn't, okay, so we are moving it to 125, okay.
And in addition, we've got on our desks, and we received earlier in email, an updated draft for special town meeting Article 3. So I don't know if people want to handle these one by one or in a group, or
I move approval on all of them,
Second.
let's see where we go.
final wording, so
Discussion.
final votes and comments.
Mr.
if people
Curo.
are happy.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I actually had asked town council to take another look at the language for STM 3. I was a little concerned that the recommended language was a little bit general in the mission and maybe not looking at the entire problem of demolition, so I suggested a list of perhaps a more specific laundry list of charges that we could give to the residential study committee that looks, because I was concerned that partly that it was a little bit subjective what we had in the language before us. So town council, thankfully, with great gratitude to you, did draft this where I am suggesting that we ask them to look at really 7 things. One is the impact on character of neighborhoods and historic preservation efforts, the impact on sellers, who, as we know, many have, this is their retirement savings, the impact on affordability of housing, because there have been some discussions around that about, and some debate about whether the preservation of smaller homes preserves affordability, or whether restricting the market actually negatively impacts affordability. Impact of persons employed in building trades, impacts on the natural environment, impacts on our local regulatory and licensing bodies. In our discussion around this whole issue, we had talked about how potentially, for example, if the original proposal were to go through to radically expand the list of properties that fell under the historic preservation, we'd have to understand what that impact is on our special services, the regulatory and licensing bodies, as well as localized disruptions and health impacts during demolitions and construction, which I know we all hear about as well. And specifically charge the group after looking at those 7 categories of issues to determine appropriate policy and zoning recommendations, which then the appropriate bodies, either the ARB or we, would take up. That was kind of the spirit in which I asked town council to take another look at the language. What's before you?
I like
Look
it
at
a
the whole
lot.
problem.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like the new version a lot. Adam?
I always hesitate to weigh in on a board vote on a recommendation like this, but slightly concerned that 7 could seem dismissive of the work already done by the residential study group
I
to date.
was wondering about that, yes.
And maybe simply including something like continuing the work on, just to recognize the work with the Good Neighbor
Yeah.
Agreement that was passed
Yes,
last
yes,
year.
yes.
Just a thought if you were open to a further amendment.
Yep.
I'm perfectly
So we'll amend
fine with that and
Yeah.
offering this as a motion with that,
Yeah.
with the incorporation of those comments.
And so,
Even if it's removed from the list and there's in here a recommendation that there's a continued.
I think another way to help manage that would be in the final paragraph of the comment. Right now, it says residential study group was created in 2016. The group has submitted successful proposals. We could say, like, put a couple of there, including creation of the Good Neighbor Agreement and the driveway.
Oh, yeah, we could add that.
Or do you have another one in mind?
No, those are the 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Kara, are you comfortable?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yep.
And Kevin, you made the original motion. Are you fine with these changes?
Yes, yes.
Diane, you're okay? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Doug?
Mr. Chair, can I ask for the board's collective experience? One other thing that I wanted to make sure I understand before you take your final vote. So Mr. Hurd is now on the Board of Selectmen, and he is voting on the final votes and comments for matters that he has not had the full opportunity to sit on. Would the board prefer it if the report reflects that these votes and comments reflect the hearings and votes taken by the board as constituted with Ms. Rowe? Or is it your usual practice to essentially not give that level of detail in the report?
My personal inclination would be I'm comfortable with Mr. Hurd voting, and we just simply reported it as 5-0. And if Mr. Hurd wishes to vote, either vote against or abstain, then we would record it as 4-0-1. But I don't think we need to specify which 5 voted on which article.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dunn. I guess I was a little imprecise there. I'm talking about more with respect to the past votes. One of the things I had hoped to have in front of you, which you had not done before, and Ms. Kropelka advised me we have never done before, and I apologize for not running it by everybody first, was I had intended to have the entire report of the Board of Selectmen for you so you could vote on everything.
Oh, God.
It's probably a little unfair to Mr. Hurd to have him vote on each and every article. So you will be voting for 5-0, if Mr. Hurd is so inclined, on these final votes and comments. But with respect to the final votes and comments prior to his election,
Got it. Diane?
Just my past experience since, I think I started coming in 1988. Didn't get on until 1999. Normally, what's been done in the past is, selectmen's names have not been, if it's a 5-0 vote, no selectmen's names are mentioned.
Okay.
If it's a 4-0, a 4-1, it just lists Mrs. Mahan voted in the negative. Like, we've never listed under every single thing, nor had a new member, correct me if I'm wrong, when they come in, a new colleague, I apologize, when they're on the board, come in and do that. So what I would say is just leave them as 5-0, 4-0, just when there's any sort of unbalanced vote or abstention, then, Mrs. Mahan abstained, Mrs. Mahan voted. I mean, that's what we've done in the past.
understood.
And I don't believe we have any split votes this year. I don't think we've had any split votes on our report this year.
I'll double check on that, but I think you may be right, Mr. Kira.
I think that in general,
I think
I like the idea of having the full report to review and look at, but at the same time, I would just say we did final votes on each one of these articles, and I'm comfortable describing that as the actual final. That would be my choice. All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Greeley, seconded by Mrs. Mahan, to accept for final votes and comments for Article 12, Article 13, Article 24, and special 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Is there any further discussion on any of those? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it's 5-0. All right, then I think that we should go back and we should do calendar. And then we're going to go into executive session.
New business?
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're right, calendar and then new business. See you. Thank you, Mr. Kira. Do we have April 23rd scheduled, which is the first day of town meeting? Is that?
Our next meeting is the 23rd.
Mr. Chair, on
Yeah.
that one, we have a number of things that are coming through.
I might have said something to Dan, or I might have told Joe, I'm not sure, but I'm beginning to think that we should start at 6:30 and not 7 o'clock, because at 6:30 you have to do the manager's evaluation, and it might take a little longer. We have to be done at 8. So I think that, but that's up to you people. We start, we have it at 7, but I think you should.
We have to also, we are hoping to have a candidate to come before us.
Oh, on that day?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the town meeting kicks off at 8. I forget, we don't do anything early. We don't need anybody down there earlier,
No,
right?
no, we don't do
Yeah,
that.
we don't do the early time, okay. So do 6:30, 6, 7? What's,
6:30 is fine with me.
Anytime
Either
works for me.
time, anytime's fine with me.
I'd prefer 6:30, but if we need to meet earlier,
Okay.
I'll make arrangements.
Kevin, you okay with 6:30?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's call it 6:30.
On the 23rd.
On the 23rd, yep. So 6:30 on the 23rd. And then, do we need a meeting the following Monday, which will presumably still be doing town meeting?
No.
No,
And then May 7th, We're probably still doing town meeting, but maybe we're wrapping up.
Hopefully it will be over by then.
Yeah.
But
So do we want to try to do a selectmen's meeting then, 2 weeks after the last one, or do we want to try to do it the following week and say we'll have like a full, not have to worry about getting out to town meeting?
I think the 7th makes sense, because that's some time that's elapsed.
Okay.
And then we'll be bumping up against Memorial Day and everything.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're right. So 5/7, 5/21. June 4th. I'd actually rather not do June 4th.
I can't do June 4th either, sir.
Okay, how do people feel about June 11th?
It's fine. It's fine.
Works for me.
11 and,
25th.
okay, 11 and 25. In July, am I getting ahead of?
No, you're,
The
please.
one Monday, but if everyone else can do it, and that's fine, is July 9th. I'll be out of town.
I am also unavailable on July 9th.
Okay. Where are we going?
Provincetown. Yeah. So July 16th.
That sounds good. Is there something we do in July with the manager?
goal setting.
While we do our,
We could pick our June goal
The
setting
end of
date.
July, but.
Has that been said, or that's a discussion for another
We
day?
can come back on another agenda.
That's fine, okay, discussion, so you said, I'm sorry, July,
July 16th.
thank you.
Then do we need one in 3 weeks? Because we tend to, do 1 or 2 in July?
One in
July, one in August.
One in July, all right, so 8/13,
It's fine with me.
Works for me.
okay.
Yep.
And then September 3rd is Labor Day, September 4th is primary day, right?
And I don't have a calendar with us, right? September 4th is the election, and
Yeah.
we're going to have early voting before that.
Yeah, so do you want to set 9/10 then? Is the
That's
first?
fine.
That's Rosh Hashanah.
I was gonna make sure we don't hit any of those. One, maybe the next meeting, we'll have the September
Okay,
calendar
all right,
with
so
all the
let's-
different.
got it,
And
okay.
school, whatever the school
All
thing
right,
is.
so
which
5/7, 5/21, 6/11, 6/25, 7/16, 8/13.
Agreed.
Yes.
Awesome.
New
And
business.
is it casual July, August, or, it's up to the gentleman.
Well, I'm, like, can we start?
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to think of like an appropriate, I'm like, how about St. Patrick's Day? Oh, wait. I need to.
Second,
All right, but
Yeah,
you'll let
so,
us know when that happens, or.
I think Memorial Day is a good start for that. Mrs. Kropalka, new business.
Other than, Ted already mentioned it about Sunday and Monday for the Patriots' Day and the party there, so I don't have anything else other than that.
John.
If everyone will indulge me for just a second, I just want to also state my appreciation for all the folks who ran for office, selectmen, town meeting, school committee. It takes a lot of guts to run, it takes a lot of guts to serve, and it's a pleasure to represent this Board of Selectmen. It's a pleasure to work with all the other folks who also volunteer their time in the town of Arlington. Thank you.
And think of all the new clients you have.
I have no new business.
no new business other than I have a question for our town council. By what score will the Yankees lose to the Red Sox tomorrow evening, sir?
You can
When do we do his
You can
evaluation?
abstain, plead the
answers.
fifth, whatever you want to do.
It depends on how you feel about a triple platinum sombrero.
No new business, sir.
It was quite a play, though. I don't know if you saw the 12th inning double play with the bases loaded and strikeout. I enjoyed it. Diane.
Similar to previous sentiments, thank everyone for coming out on Election Day, and we congratulate everyone. I also want to congratulate our colleague and our friend, Jane Morgan, on her impressive win. I'm so excited for everybody's candidacy in a different way, whether it's an incumbent bringing back institutional knowledge, but I know that Jane, Ms. Morgan, will be an exemplary school committee member, and I think she really, along with others, has her finger on the pulse of all things Arlington. Just talking to her earlier tonight about something else. But I would ask, through the chair and through the town manager, Mr. Chapdelaine, because I got this a lot over this weekend in terms of, and it is a school issue, but it's a town issue. When you all think it's appropriate, a lot of people are asking about the Arlington High rebuild. I know tonight was the last night for comments online about the Arlington High School and what it looks like. They were asking, you know, how the Board of Selectmen would proceed, asking questions about, you know, is it going to be two things at once, one and one, you know, sort of outlining that process. I indicated that, you know, I anticipated Mr. Dunn as being chair, and you would sort of be taking a leadership on that role on that in terms of gathering the information, and then along with the town manager and whoever else, when you deem appropriate. I know that they discuss it at just about every meeting, in the school committee meeting, but when you think it's appropriate, maybe between now and the end of June, one of those meetings, just to kind of just give a short little summary.
Like have the school building group committee like make a update presentation type thing, like a interim update or something maybe?
Yeah, yes, whatever you and the town manager can facilitate, just to, because some people watch school committee and they don't want to watch us, some people watch us, and then when you think appropriate, because you may be chair of another effort coming up, that when you think is the right time to start getting information out. But people, and maybe just give some brief remarks, because they were saying, you know, someone said to me this weekend, should we come into the selectmen's meeting, because we hear, you know, it might be split up 2 separate years, and I said, well, no, we're not there yet. So when you think it's appropriate to.
Okay. So I think just, so yes. But in addition, I think that anytime I get a question like that, what I think about is I try to refer them to that building committee, and that one, they've got like a blog, they've got a website, they've got all these meetings, and they're going to be, like, they can not just hear about it, like, you know, they could come here and they could tell us what they want, but we just tell them, you know, they can just go straight to that group because they're working so hard on it. So
well, I guess I kind of wanted somebody to be telling us, so that we can get all the information all at the same time, and then, because I always refer to the Facebook page and the thing.
Okay.
So, but whatever you think is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hurd.
Nothing specific tonight, but no sooner did I get elected that I started fielding comments and suggestions from, I call them residents in town, many of whom have close relationships with me, and
nice.
Some who share my name.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank the board, Mr. Chapdelaine, Mr. Hyman, of course, Mr. Kropelka, for welcoming me and making, it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So, you know, everyone has been very helpful, and I appreciate that. And I had said that in my first meeting here, I'll do a lot of listening. I think I stuck to the script on that. So again, I look forward to serving, and I'm very excited.
Welcome. Mr. Kira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think we would also be remiss, as we were talking about the election, and not thanking Ms. Kropelka, our office staff, all of the election workers, where I know it's even tougher when it's a slow one like it was on Saturday. You know, the clerk's office, everyone who was involved in administering the IT, the police department, and I know that you know, our facilities folks were out as well. I mean, working but the effort is very much appreciated, and you know, all of the election workers that we approve here, I mean, they're kind of the public face of our democratic process when folks go in to vote. So, I mean, I hope, Ms. Kropelka, I know you're in touch with everyone, if you can extend our thanks for all of that effort, certainly be appreciated. And just to put out the word, there were a lot of town meeting members who were reelected, and there were not a lot of new town meeting members who were elected, including the voice that was coming from underneath the table. Mr. Diggins was elected as the top vote getter in Precinct 3 to town meeting. So this Thursday at 7 o'clock, Vision 2020 is having an all-precincts meeting here in Town Hall. I think we know that over the years there's been a tradition for many of the precincts to have precinct meetings so that folks can come and meet their town meeting members and to hear about the issues. This is an opportunity for residents from across the town to come and hear a short warrant review, and then to break up into their various precincts with their town meeting members and to ask questions directly. So I hope a lot of residents, I hope the new town meeting members and current town meeting members will all come out for that as well. I think it's an important session, and I think it could be a great new tradition here in town. Thank you. I had no more new business.
Thank you. Mine was going to be to thank the candidates and thank everyone who worked, so we got that one nailed, because they deserve it. All right, do I have a motion to go into executive session? And I would like, I believe, for us to leave it open for us to come back and make an announcement.
Okay, so move to go into executive session to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, town comptroller, and that we will come out of executive session back into open session for the purpose of any discussion, vote, and/or adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion from Mrs. Mahan and a second from Mr. Curo. Mrs. Kropalko, could you conduct a roll?
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Mr. Kuro.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
All right.
Now, going to executive session.
Thank you. We're now moving into executive session. I do not anticipate it will be too long, but we will probably come back and we might make an announcement, we might not. And then after that, we'll adjourn. We're returning back from executive session into regular open session.
Are you two ready for a really big announcement?
We do not have an announcement. Really, motion to adjourn, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. We'll come back on April 23rd. Is that right?
At 6:30?
April 23rd, 6:30 p.m. early start.